Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about the issue of punishments, consequences, bribes, threats, because there is some confusion out there in the parenting world. What's okay, what's good to do, how does it harm the children, or how does it help them? And once again, I'm going to come at this using the model of parenting 1.0 versus 2.0 versus the fiercely loving fathers model 3.0. So in parenting 1.0, there's often a lot of emphasis on controlling the child, a lot of emphasis on punishments, on consequences, on carrots and sticks. And that's one of the big complaints of parenting 2.0 is it's just too much control, and then punishments don't work and consequences don't work, and they have their own complaints, and we'll address those in a minute. But it is true enough to be said that punishing children, like trying to make them suffer for them making a mistake or doing something wrong, is generally not very helpful. It makes them feel bad about themselves and less able to act in good ways in the future. It might operate on the animal learning part of our brain that's very just like, punishments and rewards and which way should I do it, but it doesn't help the long-term development of self-discipline over the long run. When you punish children regularly, what you end up with is kids offer a lot of resistance over time to other things that you tell them to do because they feel like you don't have their heart. You feel like you're trying to make them suffer. You have to develop that relationship and have a good, close relationship with them to get them to come on board and do some of the things that you want to. So the more harshness and punishment, the more resistance you will get from them over time. You'll also get actions of revenge. They'll find ways to sabotage situations that you know are important and that are difficult for you. They will make things happen out of spite over time, unfortunately. You'll also promote sneakiness and lying. If they know they're going to get punished and they still think it's important for them to do, they're just like, well, I'm just going to have to hide it, or I'm just going to have to lie. And that's not something you want to promote in your kids. And the last problem with punishments is in a certain percentage of the population, it's going to cause a collapse. They're going to lose their own autonomy, their own self-determination, their own reasons to do things for their own life, and therefore just go along with whatever the rule set is and be small and be like a sheep out in the world. And you don't want that. You want them to have autonomy and agency in the world. So those are some of the problems with the punishment side in the parenting 1.0 situation. The less harsh part is just the carrots and the sticks approach. And you could say in this situation, a stick is a punishment, so this could be included. There was a great book called Drive by Daniel Pinker. I think that's his name. No, that's not quite right. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyways, a great book, Drive. And he wrote all about the 7 deadly flaws of carrots and sticks. And I'm going to read these to you. So if you use carrots and sticks to try to manipulate your child primarily, rather than trying to precipitate their own intrinsic reasons for doing things, their own intrinsic motivation, you'll end up with a lot of these problems. Number 1, it diminishes performance except on the most easy routine tasks. People don't function as well when they have carrots and sticks hanging over their head. It crushes creativity. It crowds out good behavior. It can foster short-term thinking rather than thinking about the long term. You're just thinking about the reward that you're going to get instead of what's the best thing to do for the long term. It encourages cheating, shortcuts, and unethical behavior. Think about Wall Street here. It can become addictive, where you're constantly just doing things to get the rewards rather than for the intrinsic value of the thing itself. And the worst part about it is it extinguishes intrinsic motivation, the deep reasons we have to be good, to be kind, to be determined. So carrots and sticks have their own problems, and it's not to say that you can't sometimes offer a little reward for something as long as the relationship's really strong and there's lots of self-determination. I'll get into that in a minute. But in general, carrots and sticks as a primary behavioral modification approach doesn't go very far. So the parenting 2.0 situation, you'll see all the articles are about how horrible parenting 1.0 is and the punishments and the coercion and the control. And that's what it's focused on, is the demon of parenting 1.0. And fair enough, there are real problems with it, which I've just described. But the problem with the parenting 2.0 situation is they tend to be really heavy on the yin elements of relational nourishment, right? Unconditional love and space, but not very good about the yang elements, mentorship and healthy boundaries, right? And the problem is if you're all on the side of love and sweetness, the kids that come out of there in general are very narcissistic, are tyrants, and they're low on self-regulation. Think back to the permissive parenting situation that Baumrind talked about. And they're non-adaptive. So it has its own set of problems, not putting boundaries on kids and making things clear to them that certain ways of acting just aren't okay. So what you want to do is you want to be able to bring back structures and boundaries that liberate, right? And that's what we do in Fiercely Loving Fathers, the 3.0 version. You want to bring all 5 essential elements of relational nourishment. The yin elements, yes, you're perfect exactly as you are, and I totally trust you and your instincts and your intuitions. And the yang elements, you have a long way to go. Let me help you. Some of these instincts and intuitions are off and are causing problems for your family and for yourself. Let me help you with boundaries. So some of the things you can add to this relationship-centered approach, which is what Fiercely Loving Fathers is, it's based on the relationship. It's not child-centered, it's not parent-centered, it's the relationship that's centered. You can add things like natural consequences to the situation. And here I'm drawing on the work of Jane Nelson from Positive Discipline. She did a lot of great work in that book. But natural consequences are just letting things play out. Kids make decisions. They make mistakes. Don't intervene. Let the consequences of their decision teach them, okay? Giving them more space, not rescuing them all the time. So your kid forgets his lunch and he goes off to school. You could race off to school later, realizing you lost it, and bring it to him. That's okay. But the more you do that, the more you teach him, like, hey, the lunch is going to show up in either case. It doesn't matter if I remember it or not. But if you let them forget their lunch one time and say, that's going to be tough. You might have to ask for an apple from somebody, or you might have to be hungry, or, I don't know. You let the natural consequences of their actions sink in, and it's unlikely that they will forget their lunch again. You can do the same thing with a coat. They forget their coat. Yeah, they're going to be a little cold, but that's okay. You don't have to make everything perfect for them. Let them remember to bring their coat from the natural consequences. If they're really bossy with their friends, you could intervene and say, hey, don't be so bossy. Or you could let their bossiness turn their friends off and have people walk away from them and not want to be around them, and let them register like, that approach didn't work. I should try something else. Allowing natural consequences to take place, trusting our kids, teaches them about cause and effect directly without our interference, and it teaches them self-responsibility. Another layer that you can do if the natural consequences aren't totally available is you can bring logical consequences to the situation. So if you're sitting there with your 2-year-old or whatever in the park and they're throwing sand at another child, you have to come in and go, no, we can't throw sand. Nope, not doing that. And then if it happens again, you have to explain, look, if you throw sand again, I'm going to have to remove you from the park. It's not safe for the other child. It's not how we act here. You have the power. Throw sand and we leave. Don't throw sand and we can stay, So you provide logical consequences for them. Same thing with if a child won't clean the house. They just simply refuse to do their chores this week or something like that. Sometimes you just let it go. Maybe they're having a rough week, rough day. You're like, all right, give them a little space. But if this is a pattern and they simply won't step up and do their work, then you might have to say, I think I'm going to withhold the allowance then. I'm fine giving you money every week so you can buy things and feel good about it, but I feel like you're not being a team player right now. You're doing whatever you want, not thinking about the consequences with us. So maybe I'll play that game too, You provide some logical consequences for their actions. Now, when you do this, there's 3 important features of creating a logical consequence. And this is the work of Rudolf Drucker. And he says, first thing is the consequence should be related. It should be connected to whatever's going on. Like the example of the sand in the sandbox, you're being removed from the sandbox because, you're impacting another child. So the consequence of you not being able to play is very specifically related to that situation. Maybe there's a situation where an older teenager wants to go to her volleyball practice, but she has not finished the first draft of her paper and her grades are tanking. And you say, hey, look, You can totally have the power to go to this volleyball practice and I'll drive you there, but you have to get the first draft of this done. If you do not finish the first draft, I'm not bringing you to volleyball because I'm not contributing to the downfall of your grades. They're related here. You have to put the time and effort into the, making your life good, and I'm happy to assist you in enjoying the other parts of your life as well. So make sure the consequences are related. Make sure they're reasonable, okay? If a kid throws sand at 2, you don't say, that's it, we're not coming to the park for 1 year, then it's over, It's like that's way out of proportion. So make sure the consequences you provide are reasonably measured to the infraction. And the last thing is deliver it in a respectful way. You don't have to be an asshole. You don't have to be ranting and raving and see, and this is what happens and what you're doing and why'd you do that and blah, blah. No need for it. You just say, hey, it happens. You did what you did. This is the consequence. I hope you make a good choice. I'm on your team. I love you. Good luck. So I just wanted to put that in there because there's a lot of talk about these punishments and consequences and things like that. Is it okay to use them? Is it not? To me, you set the relationship first. You have a strong attachment. You make sure you know that they're on your team and that you love them. And then whenever you do set boundaries or give consequences, they'll recognize it's for them. It's in service because you've been on their team over and over and over again. And you're not willing to make life totally soft and good for them just in the moments and let them fail over time. You're actually looking out for their future self. You're looking out for a good life that they're headed towards. And you can see it coming and it's right around the corner and you're excited for them and proud, and sometimes you put a consequence in there to help them in that direction. Your kids will feel that. Your kids will honor that. They will love that in the end. So, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in a few days.